As of the end of 2022, I have ridden 45 different roller coasters, and while it isn't a ton, I've still ridden some awesome rides. And today, I wanted to count down my top 10 favorite roller coasters, but before we get into the list, I want to note where these coasters could be pulled from. The reason I wanted to do this is because if you don't see your favorite coaster on the list, it's probably just because I haven't ridden it. So, these coasters could be from California's Great America, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, Knott's Berry Farm, the Disneyland Resort, the Disney World Resort, and there you go. So let's get into the list. Number 10, Silver Bullet, Knott's Berry Farm. I think this coaster is very underrated, and I actually think it's better than Flight Deck at California's Great America, which I know is not a popular opinion. This ride's first drop is pretty lackluster, but it does a lot of things well. The layout is pretty solid, and it goes on for what feels like a long time, and it's very smooth throughout as well. Is it the most intense coaster in the world? Well, I wouldn't go that far, but it does have some intense moments near the end of the ride, which I think is the highlight. The two corkscrews and that double helix pull some good G's. And that aforementioned helix is definitely a possible gray out inducing moment. I also think the setting of this ride is pretty neat as it's going over footpaths and water throughout the ride. It's still amazing to me that Knott's Berry Farm and B&M were able to fit a coaster like this into the space they had, so job well done in just that aspect alone. This is a very satisfying ride, and I've ridden it multiple times on each of my visits to Knott's Berry Farm. Number 9, Medusa, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Hey, speaking of B&M loopers, we got another one. This time it's a floorless coaster. Unfortunately, my only experience with this ride is one ride I got earlier this year, but it was a terrific ride, that's for sure. This shows me what B&M floorless coasters can do, and it's really a good time. The first drop is straight, and I think that's a better drop in comparison to those twisted drops. It's unlikely you'll get airtime here, but you definitely feel the speed. You then proceed to charge through your 7 inversion layout, and every time you think the ride is going to end, it just keeps going. And it doesn't feel repetitive either, as it keeps throwing different upside down maneuvers at you. Like Silver Bullet, this ride is extremely smooth. I already praised the layout, but I like how they threw in a sea serpent roll here just because those are not common at all. The ride ends with a couple corkscrews and helixes, and it's really just a great experience. All around, pretty much perfect floorless coaster outside of the parking lot setting. Number 8, Hyperspace Mountain, Disneyland. Okay, let me explain a little. Layout wise, this is the same ride as the normal Space Mountain. However, having ridden both the normal Space Mountain and the reskinned Space Mountain around May the 4th, I think that these rides are very different. To me, they feel like completely different experiences, so I count them as 2 different coaster credits. But anyways, as I said, the layout is the same, and the layout isn't really anything to write home about, but I do really like what they did with the Star Wars reskin. Hyperspace Mountain feels faster than Space Mountain. I think a lot of that has to do with the music, but also it has to do with the other visuals along the ride. As you would expect, the visuals aren't anything super groundbreaking, but they're cool. Little ships you see flying by, lasers being shot at you, and at one point you go under this TIE fighter and it looks so awesome. This is one of those rides that for sure fits the bill of POVs, and video does not do this ride justice. You really have to go around May the 4th and experience the sights, sounds, and thrills of Space Mountain, or Hyperspace Mountain. And it makes it more special when you're able to ride this version because this is not the version you can typically experience. So, in my opinion, Hyperspace Mountain is an upgrade over Space Mountain. Number 7, Incredicoaster, Disney's California Adventure. When talking about roller coasters that made me love roller coasters, Incredicoaster certainly is one of them. This ride I don't think does anything exceptionally well, but it doesn't do anything exceptionally wrong either. Allow me to explain. Incredicoaster's launch is pretty decent, and it has a couple of good floater airtime moments as well. The onboard audio and story that's told for an outdoor coaster like this is also very impressive. I'm getting a little nitpicky, but the over-the-shoulder restraints aren't my favorite thing because they're pretty bulky, and the layout does a lot of meandering. But at the same time, the positives far outweigh the negatives when it comes to Incredicoaster. I've ridden this coaster plenty of times, and I don't remember ever coming off feeling disappointed in any way. And you certainly won't be disappointed from a length standpoint. This coaster goes on forever. The use of tunnels is also fun to spice up the layout a little bit. This Intamin launch coaster is known for one thing, the vertical loop. I don't remember this ever giving me headbanging, but it is a very shaky moment, and unfortunately it is better off-ride than on-ride. For a lot of kids out there, this is going to be their first ever inversion, and unfortunately it's not a very pleasant experience. If they could smooth that out, it would help this ride a lot, but even with that, it's still a very fun coaster. This walks the line of being a family coaster and being a thrill coaster very well, and it's a good time. Number 6. Rock and Roller Coaster, Disney's Hollywood Studios. This coaster I really enjoyed. Like most Disney coasters, it starts with the theming. Like in Credicoaster, we see another great example of Disney excelling at onboard audio. I'm not a huge fan of the music genre that Rock and Roller Coaster uses, but it works perfectly for this roller coaster. This ride's launch has some kick to it, 0 to 57 miles an hour in 2.8 seconds. You definitely feel it, and then you rocket through the ride's first 2 of 3 inversions right off the bat. The launch, the straightaway, and those inversions are the best parts of the ride, there's no question about it. This is a coaster that kinda has a dead spot in the middle, I will admit that. There's still some visuals though throughout the route, and the ride is pretty dark, so it doesn't feel nearly as dead as it would if it was just an outdoor coaster. You then corkscrew one final inversion before twisting your way to the brake run. This ride is not crazy long, but I never had a feeling where the ride was too short. It seems like a good length to me. My 3 rides came in April of 2021, and those rides were pretty smooth. I don't know how smooth it is now, but it was smooth then. Overall, this is one of the best coasters at the entire Disney World Resort, but it isn't quite the best one. More on that one later. In the meantime, number 5, Accelerator, Knott's Berry Farm. This is a coaster that definitely needs some more length, but it is so fun. This coaster's launch is my favorite coaster element I've ever experienced. It's so powerful, 0 to 82 miles an hour in 2.3 seconds. The acceleration is bonkers, and the top hat that follows, which stands at Hypercoaster Heights by the way, has a great moment of airtime as well, no matter where you're sitting. Then the overbank turns to finish out the ride allow you to appreciate the coaster's speed. It's really quite a bummer that I've only been able to ride this coaster twice, because it is such a terrific experience all around. Oh, and it has lap bars too, meaning you are fully free to experience the ride's airtime and launch. There isn't as much to this ride as I would like, but for a prototype, it turned out pretty darn good. Intamin, Knott's Berry Farm, hats off to you for fitting a ride this good into this space. And currently, this is my favorite launch coaster that I've ever been on. We'll see how long it can hold on to that title. Number 4, Railblazer, California's Great America. Alan Schilke for RMC has created some crazy stuff, but this is one of the craziest things he's ever drawn up. This single rail coaster is insanity from start to finish. The pacing is unbelievable, and some of the elements are really good as well. If you're looking for a short but sweet ride with no dead spots, Railblazer's the ride for you. You get thrown out of your seat in the back row on the first drop, then get thrown out of your seat in the front on the dive loop. Then, no matter where you're sitting, you get crazy airtime on the twisted airtime hill. From here, the ride goes through a couple more crazy turns, another fun drop, and a few inversions. From my experience, this coaster was very smooth as well, which definitely helped a lot. Like Accelerator, unfortunately this coaster is over before you can blink, but it's probably good that this coaster isn't too much longer because of how crazy it is. As far as the best coaster at California's Great America is concerned, I don't think it's close, and I think Railblazer is far and away the best one that they have to offer. Railblazer is a powerhouse, and I loved every second of it. Number 3, Expedition Everest, Disney's Animal Kingdom. This coaster couldn't be more different than the last two. This $100 million creation is all about the theming. And this is one of the best themed roller coasters in the entire world, and it starts in the queue line, which is very heavily detailed indeed. I wouldn't mind waiting a while for this ride because the queue is so detailed. Expedition Everest starts off slow, but when you come to the ride's second lift hill, things start to heat up. When you reach the ride's peak, you turn to the left and then stop, before going into a pretty intense indoor backward helix. Through this element, especially if you're sitting up front, you will definitely feel the positive G's. Sometimes there's debates of, is this a thrill coaster or is this a family coaster, but I think it's a thrill ride because of this element mainly. You then reach speeds of 50 miles an hour on the ensuing big drop, and from there twist in and out of the mountain, saying hello to Disco Yeti along your way to the brakes. This coaster has a lot of stoppages in the action because of the track switches and lift hills, but it's so fun. Disney and Vekoma really did an amazing job with this coaster, and the turnout was awesome. Number 2, Ghost Rider, Knott's Berry Farm. What a wooden coaster this is. A ride designed by CCI, and a ride that was helped out tremendously by GCI just a few years ago. The combination of the CCI layout and the GCI track and trains is a perfect blend. If I were to design a dream wooden coaster layout, I might just copy Ghost Rider's because it is absolutely terrific and there's so much variety in it. The first half of Ghost Rider mostly consists of big turns and drops, some giving airtime, some giving laterals. But the second half of this ride really shines. After one of the better airtime moments you'll ever experience in the back row, the second half of Ghost Rider is bonkers, laterals everywhere, airtime galore. There are just so many little maneuvers that add a lot to Ghost Rider in the second half of the ride. You then finish with a wild lateral-filled helix. Ghost Rider is great in the morning, but at night, it's crazy. Unfortunately, I've only ridden Ghost Rider at night once, and it was in one of the middle rows, but it was still one of my favorite coaster experiences ever. To put it frankly, Ghost Rider is just a wooden coaster of a masterpiece. Number 1, Joker, Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. There are many rides named Joker, but this has got to be one of the best ones. This ride was magical to me, but maybe part of it is that this is the first and currently only RMC hybrid coaster I've been on, but I still have to acknowledge how fun it was. Joker is not crazy tall or crazy fast, but it does a lot of things very, very well. The ride has lots of airtime moments, and if you ride in the back row, that first drop is a great ejector airtime pop. The airtime is great, but I would argue the inversions is where this ride shines, specifically the last two, which give amazing moments of hang time. It feels like you're floating through those elements, and it's really cool. In addition to hang time and airtime, Joker is impeccably smooth. When you have zero problems with a coaster or anything in general, you know it's good, and that's where I stand with Joker. And the fact that this is often said to be one of the weakest RMCs just speaks to the quality of that company. I cannot wait to get on more coasters from Rocky Mountain Construction, and if Joker is any indicator, then all of them are going to be great. RMC, I think your standards might be too high honestly, but for now, you can claim the top spot on my overall top 10 list.